My husband has a scar on his chest he says he's had since birth. I just found a video of him from 5 years ago. There's no scar. I was organizing old files on his laptop when I found a folder labeled Beach Trip 2019. Just him and his college friends shirtless playing volleyball. I almost clicked past it. Then I noticed his chest. Smooth, no scar. The scar I've traced with my fingers 100 times. The one that runs 6 inches across his right side. Raised and pink. The one he told me was from a surgery when he was a baby. Some valve issue with his heart, he'd said. Fixed before he could remember. I'd never questioned it. Why would I? But in this video from 5 years ago, 3 years before we met, his chest was completely unmarked. I watched it 4 times to be sure. That night I couldn't stop staring at him. He caught me looking. What? Nothing. Just thinking. About what? When did you have your heart surgery? The one that left a scar? He didn't hesitate. When I was 6 months old. Why? Just curious. He went back to watching TV. I went back to wondering why my husband had lied to me for our entire relationship. I started looking for evidence. His medical records were in a filing cabinet in the office. I waited until he left for work and went through everything. Annual checkups, dental records, nothing about heart surgery, nothing about any surgery until 4 years ago. A discharge summary from a hospital downtown. The procedure was listed as partial hepatectomy. I looked it up. Liver donation. My husband donated part of his liver 4 years ago. Not when he was a baby. Not for a heart condition. He'd given a piece of his organ to someone and never told me. I found the consent forms. The recipient's name was redacted, but the date wasn't. November 14th, 4 years ago. My hands started shaking. November 14th, 4 years ago. My father received a liver transplant that saved his life. We'd been on the waiting list for 8 months. The doctor said he had weeks left when the call came. A living donor had been found. Anonymous. Someone who asked for no recognition, no contact, nothing. My father cried when he told me. Said he'd never be able to thank the person who gave him more time. I sat on the floor trying to make the pieces fit. 4 years ago, Marcus and I worked at the same company. Different departments. We'd spoken maybe 3 times. He was just the quiet guy from accounting who nodded at me in the hallway. We didn't start dating until 2 years later. He asked me to coffee, then dinner, then everything else. I never connected him to my father's transplant. Why would I? He was a stranger back then. But now I was looking at records that said my husband had major surgery the same day my father's life was saved. I heard his car in the driveway. I didn't move. He found me on the floor surrounded by papers. His face went pale when he saw what I was holding. I can explain. You donated part of your liver to my father. He sat down across from me. Yes, we weren't even together. We barely knew each other. I knew you. His voice was quiet. I saw you crying in the break room one day. You were on the phone with your mom, talking about how your dad was dying, how the transplant list was too long. He looked at his hands. I got tested the next week. They said I was a match. I didn't think about it. I just did it. Why didn't you tell me? Because I didn't want you to feel like you owed me something. When we started dating, I wanted you to fall in love with me because of who I am, not because I saved your dad. He met my eyes. I was terrified that if you knew, you'd never be sure if what you felt was real or just gratitude. I thought about our first date, how nervous he'd been, how he'd spilled coffee on his shirt and turned red, how I'd laughed and thought he was the most genuine person I'd ever met. The scar, you said it was from birth. I didn't know how to explain it. You touched it one night and asked what happened. I panicked. I made up the heart surgery and then I was stuck with a lie. He shook his head. Every time you traced it, I felt like a fraud. I crawled across the floor and sat next to him. You gave up part of your liver for a stranger. He wasn't a stranger. He was your father, and you were already the most important person in my life, even if you didn't know it yet. I thought about my dad, how he danced at our wedding last year, how he'd held my hand and told me Marcus was the best man he'd ever met, how he'd said that man would do anything for you. He had no idea how right he was. My dad needs to know. I know. I've wanted to tell him for years. I took his hand and placed it over the scar. We'll tell him together. That Sunday, we drove to my parents' house. My dad cried for 20 minutes when Marcus showed him the scar. Then he hugged him so hard I thought he'd crack a rib. You gave me 4 more years with my daughter. My dad kept saying. You gave me her wedding. How do I ever repay that? Marcus just shook his head. You already did. You raised her. Now when I trace that scar at night, I don't see a lie. I see the moment my husband chose me before I even knew his name.